What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about something very, very important that you should be doing in your garden if you're not planting a fall garden. Now, we plant out a fall garden every single year, so I don't necessarily have to worry about this as much. But for those of you that are letting your garden just go after your summer garden is done, it is so important to plant this one crop. Plant it and let it go until the spring. So a lot of you have probably heard of a cover crop. Now, a cover crop can be a grouping of crops, plural, or just one type of crop that's planted in an area intended to either add nutrients, add fertility, or protect the soil quality. Now, farmers will use cover crops in between. They'll crop rotate out something like soybeans, and then they'll plant a cover crop in between when they're going to be planting out corn, say, the next season. Now, cover crops typically are going to be a combination of many different crops, stuff that adds biomass, that is just plant material, right? So these beans in front of us, that's biomass. Sunflowers, right? That's biomass. Anything that's growing that can be broken down is considered biomass. So some cover crops are biomass generators. Think winter rye. That's a biomass generator. It's a grass. It grows very fast, produces a lot of organic material that can then be broken down into the soil. Then you have nitrifiers, and these are things like legumes, beans, right? Beans, sometimes field peas, stuff like that. Those are actually added into a cover crop mix so that when the plant grows, it's going to be giving nitrogen back to the soil. Also clover. Clover is a very common legume and a really wonderful cover crop that adds nitrogen to the soil. And then you have the final type of cover crop that is usually added, and that is what's called a soil aerator. It's a very important part of a cover crop, and the one we're going to be talking about today, because it is not only non-invasive, it not only is not going to come back year after year, but it also is incredibly important to retaining the overall soil quality, which I think is probably your biggest concern. So when it comes to cover crops, there's certain cover crops that some gardeners just don't want to plant. And that's fine, because obviously gardening is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And some gardeners will look at something like a bean and they'll say, well, I don't really want a nitrifying cover crop, beans or clover. It's just not necessary, because in the size of garden that I have, I could in theory just re-amend with some fertilizer like trifecta in the beginning of the season. And to that I would say, well, you're 100% correct. You know, if you're looking at nitrogen, the amount of nitrogen you're going to get from growing beans could very easily be supplemented with a really inexpensive fertilizer, and it would save you a ton of time and effort if that's your prerogative. There's also some gardeners that they say, well, I don't want to plant something that could potentially come back if I don't fully turn it over. Stuff like winter rye. If it goes to seed, winter rye can then spread. It is a grass. It's going to very easily take over if you don't fully turn it over and break it down and degrade it in the soil. And so to that I would say, yes, that's a valid concern. However, it still is a good cover crop for creating biomass if you're the person that is looking for that. But there's one cover crop that I cannot get away from. Cannot, and I would say is a must. And it's because it's so simple to grow, and that is the aeration cover crop. It is so important to plant something like a radish, and specifically radishes that have deep tap roots. Consider something like white icicle, daikon, lady slipper. There's a lot of different radishes that have a deeper tap root, but essentially all of these, what they're going to do is they're going to grow down into the soil, and they're going to burrow down deep. Think like almost like a carrot. They burrow down into the soil, that tap root. And then because they're not going to grow again next year, because they're going to die, what happens is that taproot then rots away and it creates a void in the soil. And if you've ever aerated your lawn, is this giant rolling tube that's got little plugs, and it pokes holes in your lawn for stuff like grass seed, or in most cases water, to enter, so that you can then aerate your lawn, and then that reinvigorates the soil and help to soften it. And that is one of the biggest concerns that I have for you as a gardener, is maintaining the softness of your soil, because soil that is very compacted can not only can it harm soil life, but it also really hurts things like root development. Aeration is critical because that's oxygen, and all plants, all soil life require oxygen. So here's how we're going to apply our cover crop as it pertains to a soil aerator. We're using radishes. I've got here a combination of some purple plum, I got some lady slipper. I do have some sparkler white tip, which isn't the greatest, but I'm gonna go back to the shop. I am gonna grab some white icicle and some daikon. And here's the crazy thing, is in this small little 4 foot by 4 foot area, we're gonna do a test plot just to kind of showcase this. Now we have a fall garden going, so I don't necessarily really need to use this all that much, but I wanna show you all you have to do. So in this 4 foot by 4 foot area here, we're literally just gonna take these seeds. And what's awesome is the fact that these are an edible crop. So if you happen to have some that grow up and they look really pretty, you come out to your garden, you still by default also kind of have a fall garden, which is kind of cool. You can actually grow these for a cover crop and kind of just take a few into the kitchen. You don't have to really tend to them all that much. That's why we're densely sowing them. I just put about 250 of those, the purple plum in there. Now I'm gonna take about 250 of these lady slipper. So that's about 500 seeds total. And I'm just sprinkling them in here nice and dense. Now the ones that they're gonna self-cull, right? They're going to survival of the fittest, right? We don't need to worry about thinning. We don't need to worry about spacing. We also don't need to really worry all that much about if they're getting ideal water. It's really nice, honestly. And so that's all kind of worry and hassle free. The other final thing that you're going to do once you do this is you're simply going to, because there's no spacing, you want to take a rake and kind of just rough this up to bury the seeds ever so slightly. Then you're going to water it in and you can literally just leave it. Now, the time when you would apply something like a soil aerator is still going to be the fall season. You don't want to do it too early, otherwise they're going to go to seed and they're not going to focus on really building that nice deep taproot. So for us, we're applying this in mid to late September, about 30 to 40 days before our first frost, because the maturity date on these are about 25 to 35 days, which is great. The final thing is that I know you're going to ask this, what do you do in the spring? The answer is nothing. All you have to do if they form flower tops, if they happen to survive, just chop the flower tops off. But generally, over the course of winter, they're going to die. And in the spring, you're going to be left with a wonderful mat of organic material that the worms are going to come in and eat, the rotting radishes. They're going to eat the leaves that have fallen on the soil. And you're going to have incredible biomass, but you're also going to have wonderful aeration and little pockets that was left when those radishes rotted away, that rain is going to be able to percolate down through. You can apply some compost and top dress some compost, and that's going to move through the soil, and it's naturally going to help to loosen, aerate, and nutrify your soil altogether. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I really hope that you'll try this. Farmers in our area have been relying on daikon radishes to aerate their soil for decades. It is a tried and true method, and I know it'll make a huge difference in your garden if you don't plan on having a fall garden. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye.